Hi, it's Xavier with Exotic Aquatics coming back with a different kind of video today. This is a more intricate repair type for those with the power supplies for the Finnex LED strips. They are the 3-foot, I'm not sure which model, but different models do use the same power supply. And if you do notice that your light is starting to get dim and you do know that you can try and fix it and don't want to spend the money to get a whole new power supply, this is the video for you.
Lucky for you, this repair only requires a few tools: a solder sucker or a piece of stranded copper wire, a soldering iron of some sort, two of these 1000 microfarad 25-volt capacitors that are polarized, nippers to clip down the excess of the capacitor, a flathead screwdriver for removing the capacitors from the board, and some solder for reattaching the capacitors back on the board. To begin this repair, simply flip the power supply upside down, remove 4 Phillips head screws located in each corner. It's easier to flip upside down or right side up to access the top of the power supply. Now, I recommend letting the power supply discharge for at least an hour or two because there's this very large capacitor, and if you do not let it discharge, you will get electrocuted. Not badly, but it'll hurt a little. Simply remove the rubbers on each side, flipping the power supply upside down. And you can see now that it's discharged, it's completely safe to touch. There's going to be 2 capacitors located in the corner of the power supply itself, and you can see they are slightly puffy. The capacitors are supposed to look nice and flat, and if you see any other capacitors damaged, go ahead and replace those while you're at it. But normally for this problem, these 2 capacitors are responsible. Simply flip the power supply back upside down to reveal the capacitor prongs. Now that you've found your capacitor traces, simply use the solder evacuation tool or a piece of stranded copper wire to suck up the excess solder. Now that you've got all of your solder removed, what you're going to try and do is prop up the entire board so then that way your capacitors have somewhere to fall. Ta-da! Remove your capacitor, being mindful of the way the polarity came out. On some circuit boards, it does display which end is the positive and which is the negative. Simply remove the next capacitor. Now that you've removed both capacitors, you're going to clean up the holes that the capacitor legs go in. Now that you've removed both capacitors, simply clean up the holes that the legs will go in. Now that you've got the holes cleaned up, simply reinstall the new capacitors. Being mindful of polarity, the new capacitors have negative already labeled. Simply find both holes. You can bend them outwards to hold it in place. Now that you've got them all bent, you don't want to bend them all the way flat, otherwise you won't be able to cut them off. But if you pull on them, you'll get the capacitor to sit nice and flush with the board. Taking your soldering iron once again, simply add some solder to each leg. Heat it up enough to where the solder flows throughout the entire leg. Repeat that twice. And then, once you're finished, simply trim off the excess capacitor lines. Sometimes when removing the base, the studs that hold the screws will break off. You can see in this corner, one is already missing, and in this corner, one is already missing. Simply add some super glue, add the studs back in, and once you go to reassemble it, it'll all go back together the way it was. When reassembling, take the base and the whole entire circuit board, place it inside. It will fit snugly without any issues. Take the lid, seat the lid on, and if it does not fit correctly, take the entire board out, flip the case around, reinstall the board, and the lid should fit on perfectly. Reinstall all 4 screws. Use your screwdriver. When reinstalling, make sure not to do it over tight, so then that way when you go to repair it again, if something happens again, you can easily get it out.
And just like that, the aquarium is back to bright. And that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments and we'll try and help you as best as we can. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.